Alright YouTube, so we're back talking about some Final Fantasy VII Remake, and today I want to discuss the next game in the Remake project, Part 2, the second installment, Episode 2, whatever you want to call it, still being in pre-production. And the reason why we know this is, we talked about in our last video, there's an interview within the Ultimania for Final Fantasy VII Remake, where Hamaguchi says that they are still in the planning stages for the next installment, but in the last video, I wasn't sure at the time exactly when the interview took place, but we do know that it took place in March of this year. Now, I had thrown some text up on screen in the last video. I'd caught it during the editing process, but as I was recording it, I didn't realize that the interview was recorded on March 19th, 2020, so that's 3 weeks or so before the launch of the game, before April 10th, so it's pretty damn recent. Now, as for my thoughts on this isn't really that big of a deal, not really surprised. My only complaint, really, is that, I've talked about it a lot of times, I reference it a lot, but I can never find, the interview, but sometime around E3 of last year, 2019, we had heard that they were already kind of conceptualizing, developing, planning, whatever, Part 2, and the fact that we're here, almost exactly a year later, and they're still kind of in that stage, that's a bit of a letdown. That's a whole year that they haven't been working on Part 2 yet. Actually, we have a quick update. I was able to track down the article I reference a lot. This is from June 11th of last year, so again, about a month away from this article being a year old. And we have this part here that says, Kotaku added that the development team is simultaneously finishing Final Fantasy VII Remake's first game, while it is out March 2020, this is before the delay, obviously, while planning game number 2. So again, June of last year, they were already planning the game. It really all comes down to exactly what they mean by they're still planning the next installment and how much of that they already got planned out. And if they've already built any kind of assets or anything for the Remake Part 2. And see, we know that they have the story for the Remake project kind of already figured out from beginning to end, more or less, but they obviously got to fill that in with actual gameplay and side questing and a world to explore, things like that. We know that they have the story figured out, but they still have to make a full game out of that. And they've also said in interviews that having already made Remake Part 1, that they can make the second part and the subsequent other parts, if there are any, faster, because they already have those assets, right? They already have the character models for Cloud, Tifa, Barret, Aerith, and their fighting styles and their gameplay already down, so that they don't have to rebuild that from the ground up. And assuming the gameplay stays relatively the same, that'll be a lot easier to develop as well, assuming combat plays out the same with the sequels. One thing that'll probably add to development time, assuming they do it also with Part 2, is that with Remake Part 1, we learned with one of the Inside the Remake videos that, with every area, they built unique assets. Every sector, every area looked different because they built unique assets for that. And I'm assuming they'll do that with the next game as well. Each town will probably look drastically different, as it should. But even though the next game is supposed to come out quote-unquote faster, as they've said, what does that mean exactly? Because we learned also with one of these Inside the Remake videos that they kind of started actually conceptualizing or being serious about remaking Final Fantasy VII around 2012. So are we talking the next game's going to come out quicker than 8 years? Or the game got revealed, back in 2015, E3 2015. So are we talking the next game's going to come out quicker than 5 years? How long exactly are we going to be waiting for Remake Part 2? Because, quicker than 5 years potentially means, 4 years. Are we going to be waiting until 2024 till we're playing the next game? And that's the one major downside to them, breaking up the story of FF7 into multiple parts. I'm an advocate for that. I don't mind that. But if the wait between installments is really, really long, 3, 4, 5 years or something, that's a big problem, man, because you got to keep the hype train going. And that's why me and a lot of other people are kind of hopeful that they're going to do DLCs, add-ons, expansions, something with Remake Part 1 to kind of hold us over as they're making Part 2. And just to be clear here near the end of the video, I don't expect them to finish Remake Part 1 and hop right into making Remake Part 2, developing it in the studio. Every studio, once they finish a game, they do, the third installment of a game, they don't hop right into there and start making Part 4, right? They take a break, because they work on these games for years at a time. They obviously take, a few months off or however long. I just hope that we're not waiting too long for the next game. Obviously, we don't want a rushed project, but we also all don't want to wait another 4, 5, 6 years or something, right? Anyways, that's the video, my dudes. I want to pass off to you guys. What are your thoughts on Remake Part 2 still being in pre-production, and how long do you think we're going to have to wait until it comes out? Leave your thoughts and more in the comment section below. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you guys aren't new and want to update more Final Fantasy VII Remake content. Turn on my notifications. Follow me on Twitter at @dashingdavid, at my Discord. Links to my social networks are in the description and in the outro. Later, guys.
Give me a smile, give me forever for a while, give me forever for a while. Quit acting like a baby, or at least less like